expertise. That's what's made a difference. You've been able to react and responsibly. There have been a lot of bad rumors. And people were afraid. The confidence that you of my district, and they didn't because they got good information. So once again, it's very important what you do and how you respond. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilmember, for bringing that up. And then, because it's an ongoing effort, we've got literally thousands and thousands of people in shelters that are going to be transitioned out, and we can't get that done without the support of our federal partners. We've got thousands of houses, for example, that have been flooded. That's not going to be able to take place. Now, one thing, I kind of hate that I'm going to put these individuals on the spot, but since I got them here, and the point is that if we have to wait for reimbursements to come, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to move as quickly as we need to move. Because let me tell you, even now for those homes that have already flooded, but the water has subsided, they're starting to put debris out on their streets. No matter how successful we have been up to this point, if we don't finish the job, we're not going to get a high mark. And that is going to be determined by how quickly we can move that debris from in front of their houses, because that will be a constant reminder of this storm. And like I told my team this morning, we now have to remove very, very quickly to the recovery. It's not a time to pat people on the back and all that. We have to get the debris removed. We have to get the people out of the shelters and back into their normal lives. And we have to make sure that people who have been flooded are able to get the assistance they need so that they can start rebuilding. We cannot do that without our federal partners. But I want to acknowledge two individuals who have been here already. And Senator Cruz, for example, I saw him right here at the George R. Brown the other day, handing out clothes and other stuff to individuals, to our partners and guests who are here. And you've spent hours here. I know that for a fact, and saw them. And so I want to thank you. And I want to acknowledge Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who has been here several days from morning through the day, all over this district, going through the water. And if you will, I'm going to invite them, you would come forth just to make some brief remarks. Because the reality is that we're going to need our federal partners, just like we've needed each other locally. We are going to need them to represent our case and to advocate for all of our constituents very, very much. So, Senator Cruz, let me thank you for just being in the midst of the storm, amongst the people who have been in very stressful state and the needs. You would like to, please, feel free.
Well, Mayor, thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here. I just wanted to come and say thank you to everyone here. This has been an extraordinarily trying time for our city. We love the city of Houston. And this storm has been a 500-year storm. The city is hurting. And yet every one of us has seen day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, extraordinary examples of heroism. I want to thank you, Mayor, for your strong leadership. I want to thank each of the council members for your strong leadership. Chief Acevedo, Chief Pena, thank you. I mean, our police officers and firefighters and EMS, first responders, risking their lives over and over again, and we've had Coast Guardsmen, National Guardsmen, and just thousands of Texans, of men and women just answering the call and getting in a boat and saving their neighbors, saving their brother or sister. And it has been extraordinary. We've seen leaders, business leaders, just opening up their businesses, whether gallery furniture. I visited with a woman downstairs who was rescued from her neighborhood in a gallery furniture truck. And we're seeing Houstonians come together. And the result of that, every one of us mourns the lives that were lost, especially Sergeant Paris. But every one of us also gives thanks. This disaster could have so easily had a much, much higher death toll. We could be grieving many, many more lost lives, and it is because of remarkable acts of heroism, rescuing people from dangerous situations, from rooftops where they were scared for their lives. You know, here at the George R. Brown Convention Center, over and over again, I hear from people who've lost everything. And in tears, they just say, thank God I'm alive. Thank God my kids are alive. The possessions we can replace. But it is due to the incredible work of this city. Houston has demonstrated this past week, this is a city of heroes. And I am proud to be a Houstonian. I'm proud to be with you, and I'm proud of the job the city has done and the incredible coordination we've seen between the city and the county and the state and the federal government. It's so easy for different levels of government to bicker and fight and not talk and not coordinate, and in this time of crisis, we saw those assets working together in harmony. That's a remarkable thing, and it's a testament to the incredible public service. You know, on other days, there might be issues that divide us. But today, we're all Houstonians. Today, we're all Texans, and we're standing together, and this city is stronger. We will be starting the process of recovery. Recovery is going to take weeks and months and even years. But we'll do it together, united. Congress will be there. The Texas congressional delegation will be leading the efforts in Congress. We have the commitments from the President, the administration, that the federal government will be here for Houston, will be here for the Gulf Coast, and we will stand as one. And every one of us, even as we have our friends to the east in Beaumont and Port Arthur that are experiencing this storm, it is a wonderful thing in Houston to wake up this morning and see blue skies. It's been a long time since we've seen blue skies. And we will rebuild, we will be stronger, and I just want to thank the incredible public servants that are gathered here today and united and standing as one.
Thank you, Senator. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson-Lee.
There's a lot of love in this room, and as I saw the emotion of my friend, Congresswoman Stardick, I am at that point, and I'm going to try to contain myself. If I had known that the mayor would give me this privilege, I would have dressed up. But I've got around my neck my identification because I am part of the staff here at George R. Brown, and I thank you for the privilege of being here to be able to be part of the dynamic unity that has been shown by council members, listening to what you have done across the city in your own districts overlapping the 18th Congressional District. You are deserving, as you have supported the captain of the ship, and Mayor, for the steadiness of your thinking, because so many times the heart is big and love is big, but in times of tragedy and crisis, catastrophes, the mind needs to be able to embrace the right decisions. So many of you know that I have said across the nation that you are not here, and what would you have wanted to happen? And the only thing I believe, Mayor, that the tribute will come in the days and months and years is that we saved lives. You saved lives. And you did it because firefighters were not eating or getting their medicine, police officers were not eating or getting their medicine, nor were they at home pulling out rugs and furniture and taking care of the dogs and cats and moms and dads and children. They were out. I saw that. And I had I don't know how to say it, the right to join them on getting 60 people out of a church. And it was firefighters and police officers. And let me thank the United States Army Museum who brought their equipment out, old military equipment that did work. Please don't, it did work. And those firefighters hauled them down, and we went and got these people. These are the kinds of episodes that happened in this catastrophic event. So I want to, one, say that the federal government is the umbrella on a rainy day. We didn't have rain, we had a monsoon. And nobody could understand what we're facing. So let me again thank Houston, let me thank the brand of this great city. We have a brand, get it done. And everybody put it on the table to get it done. And I want to thank the United States Coast Guard, who are working today as we speak. The Texas National Guard, there are 12,000 of them here. A Marine unit that just came in that is going to continue to do some final sweeps. We have an HEB cooking truck. Maybe you can go out and get some food right in the back of the George R. Brown Convention Center. The Christian, the faith community, the Bora community, the Muslim community, all of these folk have been helpful. Let me thank the U.S. Department of Agriculture. You may have just heard that they're going to waive the provisions and allow our children to have, any child in HISD, 3 meals a day for the entire school year. That's what the federal government needs to do. And with the senator's leadership, Senator Cornyn, and I'm so glad he said the Texas delegation, you've had an unblemished record in dealing with FEMA and dealing with the money we've sent. Senator, I remember Senator Hutchinson in Hurricane Ike. We've got $400 million here. We haven't heard a word about any inappropriate use of funds. I think that should be clear to the citizens of Harris County and Houston, of the custodians like Judge Emmett, and all of you. And so I'm not going to be shy about asking for upfront funding, a waiver, temporary waiver for upfront funding, which I think is important. And Senator, I hope maybe we can help. You know, we try to stay in our lane. We are the federal government. But I hope we can help with a state law that's coming into effect on September 1st. I hope we can pray and ask for a waiver, temporary stop, 6 months. I'm not in charge, but I'd like to collaborate so that folk can get their applications in and be able to get what they are due. That is so very important. I hope that we can do that. Mayor, my last point is that people need comforting. You've been the chief comforter. So I just encourage the faith community and just folk who are a little bit more dry than others, hugs, love, and expression that we're going to get through this. And I like the attitude of saying we're still the greatest city. We've got, you see that I'm one of the new recruits on the Rockets. I play basketball better than I play football or baseball. So we just need to make sure that we give that love and that comfort. And as we try to make it back, I don't know whether we're hooking it on a private plane, but I guess they'll open it up for us, Senator, for us to get back to Washington. We'll be able to do this. I have one point to say. I want to emphasize what the senator did. This is what the senator said. This is a bipartisan effort. I've gotten calls from across the country from Republicans and Democrats. I want to thank the Democratic leadership for their calls. But I think it's important, I'm in the House, to note that Speaker Ryan has called. He's called me. I think the one point that he said that I want to make sure we all know, that there will not be one light of difference. We'll have some talking points, I'm sure, but one light of difference on getting the funding that we need here in this area. So if you will continue to keep us all in prayer, in whatever way you honor your faith or your beliefs, I think we're going to, let me just turn that around. Yep. We're going to get through it. Thank you so very much. May I just say, as I always do, God bless all of you. God bless the United States of America.
Thank you very much. And again, just some brief comments because we do need to move forward. Councilmember Laster.
Thank you, Mayor. Congresswoman, Senator, thank you for being with us. Thank you for your constant leadership on our behalf. Congresswoman, I think you said it best. If there were ever a role for the federal government, this must surely be it. And Senator, I want to thank you, and I want to thank Senator Cornyn and the entire Texas delegation, Democrats, Republicans. We need to be united in one in this issue. You know, you were sitting there as I talked about some of the neighborhoods that had flooded for the third time in 2 years. So I hope that we think outside of the box, and it's not just merely monies that come, but I hope we look at what are we doing for buyout programs? What are we doing for low-interest loans that allow people not only to rebuild their house, but to raise their house so they can stay in place and keep neighborhoods together? What are we doing about tax credits for people, or mortgage reductions or mortgage credits? We need to be thinking outside the box, because people want to stay in their neighborhoods if they can, and yet they may not be able to. So I'm asking you to be as creative as possible, be as united as possible, and bring us as much assistance as you possibly can. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. Again, I'm going to ask you all to be as brief as possible so we can move forward. Councilman Lee.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, natural disasters affect everyone, regardless of race, gender, religion, politics. So it's so great to see Republicans working with Democrats and getting things done for Houston. You know, we all hear stories of how FEMA is so slow in responding, but I'm certain that our senator and our local U.S. Congresswoman will help Houstonians get the help they need from FEMA a lot quicker than we're used to, or from all the stories that we hear. So thank you very much for working hand in hand, and we hope to see more of this collaboration from you two. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Pro Tem Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Senator. Congresswoman, thank you. And I know you've been here like around the clock, but before that, you've been out in your district, my district, in your district. But I want to say thank you, because sometimes we're not able to do anything.
Hi guys, if you're just joining us live here on Fox 5 Live in Washington, D.C., you're looking at some live pictures of the Houston City Council. They're meeting today. Earlier, if you were on with us, you saw Senator Ted Cruz speak as well, and other officials. The Mayor Sylvester Turner is there. We're going to continue this coverage of Harvey coverage as long as we have live shots throughout the day of what's going on down there. Now, earlier, FEMA spoke on their relief efforts for Harvey. We'll play back some of that video for you as well. And coming up shortly, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, he'll be speaking in a press conference. We'll take that live as well. So stay with us here, guys, for all your midday coverage on Hurricane, or now Tropical Storm Harvey. And as it moves into Louisiana, we'll be seeing more of that coverage, live shots from that angle, as well as press conferences with officials to keep you guys informed. So again, live from the Houston City Council, this is their meeting going on right now in Houston.
Thank you, Congresswoman, for pointing out HB 1744 and hopefully the delay. That's the filing of insurance claims that need to be done before Friday, so that way the insurance companies will be more stringent in paying up claims. So I'm hoping that there will be a delay of HB 1744. But I'm deploying and asking Senator and Congresswoman if you could please contact Governor Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and ask if they could also delay the implementation of SB 4. There are a lot of, as you know, about half of the population, nearly half of the population of the state of Texas is Latino. And I know my office is getting calls from individuals that are fearing to get help because they're afraid that they're going to be asked for documentation. And I'm asking that you please ask the governor, ask the lieutenant governor to delay the implementation of SB 4, which goes into effect on Friday. So please do that. Thank you.
Councilman Borkins.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to echo Congresswoman and Senator what Councilmember Gallegos just mentioned about SB 4. I think it would be important that the governor hear from you too about that. I also want to say, Senator Cruz, when Senator Hutchinson was in the slot, I do recall that $400+ million. We need to get that in our city and our region, and I know you would lead on that. Thank you so much. And the last thing I want to say, Congresswoman Lee, it was music to the ears when you called me, and you know we were stressed out about a location in our district and said the forge was open. So I just want to say thank you publicly. It meant a lot to a lot of people. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you both. And I simply want to highlight two things. Debris removal. During Hurricane Ike, it cost us more than $70 million to remove that debris. This time around, the damage is much broader. If we do not remove this debris timely, people from the west, east, south, north, central they're going to be screaming because they'll continue to be traumatized. If we have to wait on the reimbursement, that's going to make it very difficult. Secondly, the thousands of people who are in shelters, you know very well, after a while, they're going to get restless and they're going to want to go. We need FEMA en masse from the NRG to this center, all of the shelters, all throughout our region, not just the city, because I just know how that's going to go. And then thirdly, when people get ready to move in their houses, they're going to make those claims. They're going to need those dollars as quickly as possible so they can rebuild. That's the only thing that I would ask. And I know to get.
Going, Mayor.
Well, I know the list goes on, but I just want to highlight those things in particular. There will be others, but we need that help ASAP. Thank you both. Thank you both for what you do. Thank you for being here, not just today, but during the storm. We're still in it, but we're coming out of it. So thank you both. Appreciate it.
Mayor, may I just thank Tom, who runs this particular center. You acknowledged him already, but I know his shop is going to be the housing shop. I want to thank him, and I want to thank Chief Garcia, who was here as well, and all the team that was here at the George R. Brown and going on to Toyota. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't want to leave out Metro. Metro has been incredible to Karen Patman and the whole team. I want to thank them. And I want to thank HTV and the staff. They slept at OEM. Thank you all. They've been tremendous, literally. Some have slept on cots. Some have slept on the desk. Some have slept on the floor. So they've been incredible. All the people at OEM, they are still there. They need deodorant. That was intended to be funny. Okay. But all of the people at OEM, I want to thank all of them. And then lastly, I would say that the Astros asked whether or not about playing. I know the game is on Friday and stuff. This is what I'm saying to Houstonians, and what I've said to the Astros, and what I would say to the others. We can do more than one thing at one time. We have to move from where we are back to where we need to be. I want the Astros to play on Friday night. I want any activities that were scheduled. I want the activities to start. Let's not remain where we are. Let's not say, woe is me. Look at how big the storm. Hey, we've always had challenges. We will always have challenges. But you can't stay where you are. You have to go to where you want to be. So if I have anything to say to the Astros and others, let's play ball. And to the people in the city of Houston, let's play ball, okay? Say to the Port Authority, as soon as the ships can start to sail in the port, let's get moving. Commissioner, I see you out there, Theldon Branch. As soon as the port is ready, let's go. Let's start rebuilding. But we are not going to sit around and complain. Still have people in stress that are in distress. Stress station. Let's attend to it. Now let's move forward to the monthly financial report. Comptroller Chris Brown and Finance Director Kelly Dow. And while they're coming, let me thank the Hilton Americas for feeding our first responders. Let me thank the Hilton Americas for feeding our first responders. Comptroller.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members. I'm pleased to present the monthly financial report for the period ending July 31st. In the general fund, the Comptroller's Office is projecting an ending fund balance of $201.3 million for FY18. This is $4.7 million lower than the projection of the Finance Department. The difference is due to a $4.7 million higher revenue projection. Based on our current projections, the fund balance will be $48.7 million above the city's target of holding 7.5%. The ending fund balance and amount above the target noted above are $33 million higher than projected in the June financial report due to pending year-end expenditures and revenues. We expect these amounts to be reflected in the August report next month. We are projecting FY 2018 revenues at our trends report amount released in May, with the exception of property tax and licenses and permits. The major differences are in one category: sales tax is 2.02 million lower, as the Comptroller's Office is using a 1% growth. Expenditure projections were increased $30.2 million from the adopted budget. Fire was increased $13.3 million for fire pension rate increases. Parks was increased $5 million for the Houston Zoo repayment that was deferred last year. Police was increased $1 million for an additional.
Guys, a quick look at President Trump on the tarmac at Joint Base Andrews. He's off to Missouri today after having spoken in Texas. He went down to Corpus Christi yesterday and then over to Austin. And this is, again, tape playback from earlier this morning, and he's making his Midwest rounds. Going to be talking taxes in the Midwest and then coming back to D.C. So we're just getting this in, just showing you what it looks like transferring from Marine One to Air Force One there on the tarmac. We're going to go back to the Houston City Council meeting, guys. If you're just joining us, welcome to the show. Fox 5 Live is what you're watching, our YouTube channel here. You can subscribe to our channel on our station. We also post this often for larger events onto our Facebook page, Fox 5 DC, and you can follow us on all social media platforms, Fox 5 DC. So stay with us here for continued coverage. We're going to get in a lot of feeds. I'm hearing that Texas Governor Greg Abbott is coming up next for a press conference, so we'll be checking in there. But live in Houston, this is the City Council meeting going on. A few notables there, of course, Senator Cruz, whom we heard from earlier this morning. I'm going to play what he had to say as he discussed the latest regarding Harvey. And now they're discussing the very latest regarding Harvey from the convention center, numerous officials and Congress people there. So we're going to stay here for just a little bit, guys. Feel free to chat it up on the live chat. Hey, Mike, what's up? Good to see you guys on the stream. Stay with us.
Year 18 are based on 1 month of actual results and 11 months of projections. For fiscal year 17, our current preliminary undesignated fund balance for the general fund is projected at $282.3 million. That is approximately $25.9 million higher than our June MOFR projection, but this number is expected to come back down significantly as charges and services for fiscal year 17 continue to be booked. The results, of course, are not final until publication of the 2017 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. For fiscal year 2018, our projection for revenues and other sources remains at the adopted budget. As the Comptroller said, in accordance with the Mayor's intention, we are reducing our projection for the use of fund. Reducing our projection for the ending fund balance because of the use of that fund balance for non-recurring budget items. Our expenditure projection is $30.2 million higher than the adopted budget, primarily due to the $13.3 million increase in fire pension projection, $6 million increase to fully fund classified fire employee pay raises. We had $7.2 million in the adopted budget. This fully funds those increases. A $5 million increase in parks and recreation for the elimination of a one-time deferral for the interlocal payment to the Houston Zoo. A $4.9 million increase in general government for the elimination of a one-time deferral of the lease payment for public works for 611 Walker, and a $982,000 increase in the Houston Police Department to fund an additional cadet class. We're currently projecting an ending fund balance of $206 million, which is approximately 10.1 of estimated expenditures less debt services and pay-as-you-go before the final adjustment for FY 17 expenditures. In the enterprise special revenue and other funds, the only changes in the combined utility system or non-operating revenues are increasing by $4.5 million due to that elimination of the deferral to 611 Walker lease payment. Thank you very much, and that concludes our report.
Councilmember Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Dow. Thank you, Controller Brown, for your report. I just want to call to everyone's attention the fact that we are eliminating a lot of one-time deferrals. I think that's a very wise choice, and particularly since we're now also further investing into the cadet class that we were not able originally to fund based on those projections. So I just want to commend you, Mayor, on that decision. I think those are wise and prudent ones, and think that this is a strong report. So thank you.
Yeah. Please note, we are now funding the 5th Cadet because we are starting The additional amount for that cadet class will come later. This is just the beginning segment, but we are funding the 5th cadet class. We are eliminating that payment, the deferment from the zoo, and the deferment that we made to 611 Marker. We're paying that money back. So we're getting rid of that. Are there any questions? Councilmember Christie.
It's obvious we didn't have our committee meeting to peruse this, but it was online, and we appreciate the report. And to the public, just observe, we're sticking with the balanced budget in spite of revenue cap. If the pension bonds pass in the fall, this city is strong. And there's less and less waste. It's very transparent. And we appreciate the report. With that in mind, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the monthly financial report ending July 31st.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Discussion.
Sorry.
I'm really pleased to hear that you found funding for an additional cadet class. I'm also learning that we lost some of our fleet in the flood. Some police cars. I don't know what else, but I hope you're able to find money to support them that way too.
In fact, we had already planned on in the CIP and then in the measure in November to purchase additional equipment for police, fire, and solid waste.
Thank you.
Yes, we may have to add to that number, but yes. Okay, Councilman Bork.
Mayor, I just want to say this real quick with regards to what you're saying, the upcoming expenditures. My concern, I know we're in the month of August, effective September, once the new revenue cap that was imposed by the state goes in effect, it's going to be very difficult for me to support our financials going forward because we're capping revenue, which we need in the city, and to continue to support cuts into revenue when services going up. I just want to give you a heads up. I can't promise I'm going to be supporting the financial position it has put our city in.
Well, I look forward to having that conversation. Let's you and I have a cup of coffee.
Mayor, if you'd allow me one comment specifically to the Prop 1 calculation. That calculation allows for money that's spent on disasters to amend the calculation. We're currently working, Kelly Dow.
Right. There's an exception.
In finance to figure out that amount because we essentially will be able to, knock on wood, get more of that tax dollar money by lifting the cap by including that disaster money that we're spending on this
Right.
efforts.
There is an exception. That's why there will be a discussion on this whole issue when it comes up. Okay. Thank you both. Oh, any other discussion? Any objection? Chair is none. Motion is granted. If you will, in order to take care of the most important business first, and one of the reasons why we're meeting today, let me ask the secretary to call emergency items 44, 45, 46, and X.
Okay, the first one is an ordinance authorizing the mayor of the city of Houston to extend or continue a proclamation of a local state or of disaster for the city of Houston beyond the 7-day period after the proclamation was issued, making certain findings related thereto and declaring an emergency.
Is this a motion, Madam Secretary?
It's an ordinance.
It's an ordinance. Any discussion? Discussion. Councilmember Laster. Okay. Any discussion? In favor? Opposed? Granted. Now, Councilmember Laster.
The next one.
Okay, the next one
Hold on
is...
a second. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry.
Let me find it. This next one is an ordinance amending ordinance 2015-509 to rename the 2015 Flood Disaster and Recovery Fund to the Disaster Recovery Fund, modifying the sources and uses of the funds therein to aid in disaster relief and recovery, making findings and provisions and declaring an emergency. It's an ordinance.
Discussion, and this just brings it current. Councilmember Laster.
Thank you, Mayor. I have just a couple of questions to make sure that we are clear about what we're doing here, and I also want to, hopefully my questions will help clarify to the general public any level of confusion.
Guys, if you're just joining us, you're looking at live pictures inside the Houston City Council. A number of people are there, including the mayor, Mayor Sylvester Turner, who we've been hearing from over the past few days, regarding this devastation, this trauma and disaster really in Houston. Now, Tropical Storm Harvey is heading eastward towards Louisiana. We're going to be hearing from Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Shortly, he's slated to have a press conference on the matter. And honestly, just a quick a look at some other things that are happening. There's Air Force One taking off. This is tape playback from just moments ago. President Trump heading to Missouri today. And then he'll be back in D.C. later tonight, according to that schedule. But what we have live is this city council going on, and we'll be following and tracking the news on Harvey. And as we see more rescue stories come about and even live pictures from some of the flooding, it's still happening. People are still really just getting out and underwater, and the numbers are starting to come out with what's happened and how many have been rescued and how many crews are in there rescuing folks. So it's still a pretty scary situation. They're detailing some updates and some numbers here at this city council meeting, and then we'll be flashing the camera around to various events this afternoon so that you can see that. So we have a few things on our radar for today. I thought it was cute, interestingly, that Houston Zoo has some webcams up of their animals, different separate webcams to show that the zoo is doing okay, the animals are safe. Some other pets and animals have not been so safe, and we've seen some footage of animal rescues and people going back for pets who were abandoned because of this storm. And that just naturally happens, unfortunately. Really, really sad case, but it's true. And so it's nice to see some of those pet rescues as well. So I've been kind of monitoring some of that. So we'll bring you guys Harvey updates as much as we have them, and even some local live news when we get some stories in as well. But for now, this is live in Houston. And like we said, the Texas Governor Greg Abbott is supposed to speak in a little bit to give an update from there. So thanks for joining us here on the stream. I'm Molly in the newsroom. And we're going to take it back inside this city council meeting and see when that wraps up.
An emergency.
Okay. Questions on item 46? Any discussion on 46? Any discussion? In favor? Opposed? Granted on 46. Thank you very, very much. And now we're going to move to the public session.
We only had 4 names listed, so
Only
for anyone.
Only 4 people, I believe. There were only about 4 people that reserved time. We did not bring a list. Is there any of those people who reserved time that wish to be heard at this time?
Is there anyone here who wishes to speak during the public session? Anyone who wishes to speak during the public session? Anyone who wishes to speak during the public session? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll now move back to the agenda.
You want to call the hearing next? Yes, please. Okay, item 1 is the hearing that was posted. It's to, the hearing is relative to the designation of a banner district in the Greater Southeast Management District. Is there anyone present? We didn't have a list of that one either. Is there anyone present?
Anyone here who wishes to speak regarding the Greater Southeast Management District? For or opposed? At all? Anyone?
Is there a presentation on the matter?
Anyone? Do I hear a motion to close?
Move.
Then moved. Second. Any objection? Chair is none. Granted. Thank you. Let me just say, as we move to the agenda, you didn't have an opportunity.
All right, guys, not sure if we're just losing that feed or what's going on with that. But let's take it back in here to the Washington, D.C. newsroom, guys. Senator Ted Cruz was in that meeting, and earlier this morning from the convention center, he had a few words to say discussing the latest regarding Tropical Storm Harvey. And we're going to take you over there to play that out in case you missed it. Senator Ted Cruz, guys.
See blue sky. We haven't seen blue sky in a long time, and we've had some 50 inches of rain pounding our community. Right now, our prayers are very much with our friends to the east. Beaumont is getting hit very, very hard by the storm right now. Louisiana is getting hit very, very hard by the storm right now, and so our prayers are with those who are in immediate harm's way as the search and rescue continues. You know, I just saw a photograph of the I-10 freeway headed out by Beaumont that was completely underwater and had waves that looked like you were looking at the Gulf of Mexico. And so this remains a very dangerous storm. I'm here this morning back at the George R. Brown Convention Center, which has been set up as a shelter. It initially was set up to house 5,000 people. The capacity last night, there were about 11,000 people here. We're seeing an outpouring of love and care and support. Across the region, we have, that we know of, about 32,000 Texans who have sought shelter. Many more are staying with friends or staying with families, are renting hotel rooms. But those who have sought shelters in the shelters that have been stood up, it's about 32,000. And there are about 230 shelters across the Houston region and across the state. And so we're seeing a really incredible outpouring of love and support and care. And that will be ongoing. It is terrific here seeing all the volunteers who come out and help, especially all the young people. It's really nice to see college students, to see high school kids coming out saying, how can I help my community? How can I make a difference for people in need? That has been, throughout this devastating storm, the most inspiring part of it all is the response of Texans coming together, Texans helping Texans, and the unity we're seeing. We will make it through this storm, and on the other side, we will rebuild. To those who lost their homes, to those who lost their businesses, that's an enormous trauma. It's very difficult to deal with, but we will rebuild. We will come together, and Texas will come back stronger than ever. Houston will come back stronger than ever, because that's the spirit of who we are.
Texas, the shot is reported interactable. The source is Fox, and you are permitted to also stream this on your social media sites at Channel 2.
How do you respond to that?
You know, I think it's really sad that there's some politicians that seem very desperate to get their name in the news and are tossing around all sorts of political insults. We have people whose lives are in danger. We have people who are fleeing floodwaters and fleeing for their lives, and I wish all of us were focused on providing the help and relief to people facing a natural disaster, facing a crisis. I'm a Houstonian. I have been here this entire week at home, and my focus has been trying to help bring together and coordinate federal and state and local assets to save and preserve lives. You know, going back this past weekend on Saturday, the Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner and the county judge here at Abbott both told me that we lack sufficient assets for high water rescues, that the calls to 911, the volume was so great that there were not enough boats, there were not enough helicopters and high water trucks to meet the need. And so I immediately hung up the phone and began calling federal officials, state officials, spoke with the governor, spoke with the president, the vice president, numerous cabinet members, and within hours we saw enormous resources being marshaled and deployed here on the ground. The governor deployed over 500 Texas DPS troopers, sent them to Houston to help with search and recovery. The governor called up over 3,000 National Guardsmen to send to Houston. It's now over 13,000 National Guardsmen who's been called up to help with disaster relief. The governor sent boats and helicopters. At the federal level, the Coast Guard deployed more helicopters for high water rescue to help people in need. We also saw all across the spectrum, we saw actually Border Patrol down in the Rio Grande Valley sent up manpower, sent up helicopters, sent up boats, sent up jet skis, sent their teams trained in high water rescue. And within a matter of hours, we saw an enormous increase in the resources on the ground. That was from a cooperation that we've seen from the federal government, the state government, and the county and local government. That is really remarkable, and it's a cooperation. It's cross-party lines. None of those divisions matter in a time of crisis. What matters is we need to come together and save the people whose lives are at risk. And I'll tell you the most inspiring thing is all of the hundreds and thousands of Texans who just stepped up to save their neighbors. When the local officials put out a call, if you've got a flat-bottom boat, if you can help someone in need, please do so.
we saw an incredible outpouring from the community. Now, a couple of days ago, I was at the Harris County Emergency Command Center. There's an entire wall covered with Post-its of just Houstonians who called in and said, you know, I've got a boat, I can help. And their name and cell phone number was there. And so as calls came in crisis, they could pick up the phone and call someone on their cell and say, hey, your neighbor 4 blocks over, they're in trouble, can you go get them? And it was an incredible armada of Texans helping Texans. We've seen that in the crisis, and, you know, we're seeing it now. We're seeing it now with the disaster relief. The number of Texans all across the state who are going to the Red Cross website, going to the Salvation Army website, who are contributing, who are donating, who are volunteering. We're coming together to meet a crisis, and we need to continue to do that. And, you know, you asked about the federal response. There's stages to a crisis, to a disaster like this. The first stage is the immediate crisis and dealing with the preservation of lives and coordinating all of the assets to get people out of harm's way. We're nearing the end of that process. We're not yet done. There's still, Beaumont is facing a very dangerous situation. But hopefully in a few days this storm will be done, and that first crisis situation will have passed. After that
federal aid money, will you vote yes for it? Yes, you will vote yes for it. And why did you vote no against Sandy then? How can you justify that?
The next stage is rebuilding. The next stage is going to be Texans going back to their homes and seeing what's left. Some may return home, and thank God the floodwaters didn't enter their home, and they're able to go back home and be there. Others will discover devastating losses. And the process of rebuilding, there's a process that is led by FEMA at the federal government that involves calculating the losses. People put in insurance claims. The first resource is insurance claims, and then FEMA has a process as a safety net for those who lack sufficient insurance. The process of rebuilding in Texas, it's going to take weeks and then months, and it will take ultimately years to rebuild the devastating damage that occurred. Absolutely, yes, Congress will step in and provide very significant resources for the people who have been damaged by this terrible storm. That effort will be led in the Senate by John Cornyn and myself. It will be led in the House by the Texas congressional delegation. We will lead the effort following federal law, following federal statute, which provides that when a natural disaster strikes, that citizens are entitled to have relief, and we have very specific federal formulas that are set up to calculate that. We also have the very explicit commitment of President Trump and the administration. I spent yesterday with the president in Corpus Christi and Austin, and the president was unequivocal in his commitment that the administration would be there for Texas and be there enthusiastically. Now, you are right. There has been some political sniping over Sandy. Sandy was another devastating crisis, and every Texas Republican in Congress supported giving aid to the people of Sandy, to the victims of Sandy. All of us spoke out enthusiastically that, of course, there should be aid pursuant to the federal statutes to those in harm's way. Most of the Texas congressional delegation voted against the final bill because the final bill got loaded up. It was a $50 billion bill, 70% of which was not emergency aid. Only 30% of that bill was emergency aid. For example, that bill included money for fisheries in Alaska.
Guys, I'm going to switch this up actually and take you right now to a moment that's happening live here on Bowie State University's campus. If you guys remember, Second Lieutenant Richard Collins III was stabbed on the University of Maryland campus. Now, both universities, both schools today were holding a moment of silence. This is actually ongoing right now live. I think it started at 12:05 p.m. Eastern time here, and we're going to check into this small ceremony here to remember Richard, who was stabbed on the University of Maryland's campus.
Especially our BSU family, our command, United States Army Cadet Command, the military members serving abroad and at home, for all the support that they have directed our way. And as we continue forward in this semester, in this new year, I challenge everybody, each and every one of us, to understand what it means to honor someone's legacy, to reflect on what we can do to honor Second Lieutenant Richard Collins' legacy. And I suggest a few things. One, we need to excel in our academics. Whether we're students or teachers, we need to excel in the classroom. Next, we also need to excel in our community service, whether it's right here on campus, what we're doing to make our university better, what are we doing to make our Bowie environment better, and what are we doing to make the places we live and reside better in our community. And last, what are we doing to be better leaders? Leaders in our homes, leaders on the job, leaders in our community. That was the legacy of Second Lieutenant Richard Collins. He excelled in his academics. He excelled in community service. And he strived for leadership excellence. Thank you guys for joining us today, and continue to excel in academics, in the community, and in leadership.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel. Next, we will call to the stage for reflections from our student body representative, our president, Ms. Felicia Fabulous.
Yesterday, my philosophy professor read a poem of his in class, telling us to speak our truth. I had a previous set of remarks prepared until I heard this reminder. The truth is, today marks the 102nd day that Second Lieutenant Richard Collins III has been taken from us. The truth is, for the past 102 days, this tragedy has weighed on my heart and in my mind, caused me to reflect and think what it is that I as an individual can do. What is it that student government can do? What is it that Bowie State University can do? What is it that the University of Maryland can do? What is it that the university systems of Maryland can do? And the truth is, there's nothing that we can do today that can cause us to go back in time and bring back our fallen bulldog. The truth is that as a whole, we had not already done enough to ensure that our institutions were not fostering grounds for hatred and racism. The truth is, individually, we are not ensuring that our words and our actions are kind, and making sure that around us the words and actions of those around us are kind as well. We're not checking ourselves, we're not checking our friends, our families, and those on social media when they say problematic or hurtful things about other races and cultures. The truth is that as student government, we are only focused on advocating for our students. And we're only focused on advocating for our students when we have brothers and sisters 20 minutes up the street who are part of our community that need our help as well. The truth is that Bowie State University, as the first historically Black institution, is not being a front runner in holding our neighboring universities accountable for their tolerance of hatred and racism on their campus. Bowie State has issued too many statements denouncing these acts, when of course we denounce these acts, for the foundation of Bowie State University was founded to solely counteract racism and hatred. But what actions are we actually taking today as a university? And the truth is, I don't particularly need to mention that what the University of Maryland or the university systems of Maryland hasn't been doing, because I think by now we are aware that there is well more that we can do today. And the truth is, it shouldn't have taken Second Lieutenant Richard Collins losing his life for all of us to decide that we're going to do something and say something of meaning now, that we're going to hold each other accountable now. But let the way he fearlessly lived his life serve as a reminder to us that the time to combat racism and hatred is always in this present moment in time, right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Felicia. At this point in time, with comments on how we should proceed from our History and Government Department, Dr. David Reed.
Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois once said, "In the folds of this European civilization I was born and shall die, integrally a part of it and yet one of its rejected parts. I flew round and round with this zygote, waving my pen and lifting faint voices, to explain, to expound, and to exhort, to see, to foresee with prophecy, to the few who could or would listen." Are you listening? Where do we go from here? When Provost Jackson and Dr. Travis asked me to make a few remarks about where do we go from here, immediately I thought about a book with the same title, Where Do We Go From Here, written by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It was the last book that he wrote 1 year before his death in 1967. He was on vacation in Jamaica. He had fought for 12 to 15 years nonstop in the civil rights movement, and there were some accomplishments. The Civil Rights Bill of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 were notable accomplishments, and he needed some rest. And during this month-long rest or hiatus in Jamaica, he wrote the book, Where Do We Go From Here? And he recognized that more than anything, this country needs a revolution in values. He talked about economic injustice and entrenched racism and bigotry that he knew was going to be on the horizon long after his death. Malcolm X reminds us that history is the best reward for our research. With all this talk about statues and memorials and flags and heritage and free speech and all of these other euphemisms for white power, we have to be real. We have to recognize that in many ways, Charlottesville shouldn't be a shock to us, unfortunately. We have to remember that Virginia, after all, is the home of 4 slaveholding presidents. George Washington was a slaveholder from Virginia. Thomas Jefferson was a slaveholder from Virginia. James Madison was a slaveholder from Virginia. James Monroe was a slaveholder from Virginia. The University of Virginia, founded 1 mile away in Charlottesville, had a student body of 600 students at the time of the Civil War. 500 of them joined the Confederacy to fight to maintain slavery. 2,000 alumni also joined the Confederate ranks. This university was, of course, founded by Thomas Jefferson, the author of our Declaration of Independence, who maintained that all men are created equal, while he himself maintained slaves. We have a building in our midst, the Thurgood Marshall Library, where one of our great Marylanders applied to the University of Maryland, College Park, to go to law school. He was rejected because he was a Negro. But that rejection turned into an opportunity for an even greater blessing. He ended up going to Howard University Law School, where he was trained by the great Charles Hamilton Houston, his Alpha fraternity brother. And he ended up being the lead counsel for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People Legal Defense Fund. And he ended up fighting and, of course, arguing Brown versus Board of Education, which was a landmark victory in the legal system, which led to the integration of the public schools. So what does all of this mean? Where do we go from here? I say that if you're in a fraternity or a sorority, or you belong to a church or a civic or a social organization, it's time to get active. It's time to get busy. It's time to be diligent. We don't have time for events like this to take place and then we react to something. We need to be proactive, thank you. We need to be excellent examples of tolerance and patience and love and kindness. We need to continue to be excellent Bowie State students in our studies. Lieutenant Collins was an excellent student. His death should not be in vain. It means we have to burn the midnight oil and read a little bit more thoroughly and turn in our work on time and be on time to class. And it means that we need to be excellent in our behavior on campus. It also means that we have to be vigilant. We can't just step. We can't just throw up signs. We can't just look cute. We can't afford to be passive. We have to be actively engaged in creating a better world. And finally, we have to stay woke. Just because a statue is removed, just because a flag is taken down, doesn't mean that the motivation and the thoughts and the spirit that created it in the first place is gone anywhere. We have to be woke. We have to be active. I think that his life, while tragic, was for a time and purpose. Now we have to figure out what is our time and what is our purpose. Thank you.
At this point in time, we will ask our Mr. Bowie 2017-2018, Mr. Kyle Jones, to come forward to sing our alma mater. Prior to that, I do want to announce that we will have, and we have set up a committee for diversity and inclusion programming that will address the issues and concerns that Dr. Bro had mentioned, that our speakers, Daquan, Felicia, Dr. Reed, and also Lieutenant Colonel Thomas. That Diversity and Inclusion Committee is a broad-based committee. That committee is made up of Ms. Felicia Fabulous, the SGA President, Mr. Daquan Landrum, GSA President, Dr. Patricia Westerman, Chair of the Faculty Senate, Dr. Darla Scott from the Department of Counseling, Ms. Demita Chambers, Marketing and Public Relations, Mr. Robert Batten, our International Programs Director, Ms. Karina Sanchez, our Orientation Advisor, Nurse Lindlin Chu from our Wellness Center, Dr. Sherelle Angel Briscoe, our Assistant VP for Academic Affairs, a student to be named later, and also Ms. Devine Sneed. At this point, I would like to call Mr. Bowie forward to do our alma mater.
There's a spot in my heart that never goes cold. There's a place in my memory that never grows cold. There's a prayer on my lips that will ever be true. To God and my country, to Bowie State, my school. Oh, Bowie State, dear Bowie State, may you forever be the flame of faith, the torch of truth, to guide the steps of you. Thank you.
We've come to the close of the program. Before I fully close out, I want to acknowledge another special guest who was able to join us today. Senator Benson, I understand, is here with us. Senator Benson, would you please raise your hand? There she is over there. Please give her a round of applause, and thank you so very much for being here with us. Thank you to the organizers for this event, and thank you all, Bowie State University, campus and community. We thank you for joining with us, and now we go forward together to improve each day. Please remember the words that you heard here today, and let's work to make for a better future. Thank you all. This concludes our program. Thank you.
Once again, guys, a ceremony to honor Richard Collins III, who died in that stabbing attack on the University of Maryland's campus. So both universities today held a moment of silence. We were able to catch this small ceremony on camera. So this is live from Bowie State University up here in Maryland. So we're going to continue the hurricane or tropical storm Harvey coverage. If you guys are just joining us, obviously that's pretty much dominating the news and the headlines lately. A quick podium shot right here before Governor Abbott comes out. That is next. We're teasing that out because we've been waiting on this press conference to hear from the governor. So I'm going to make sure we flash over there when we see that come up. And then also we have a live look at what's going on. This is a little bit rough footage here, but you can see it's kind of in and out, obviously with the reception there, but this is a live look at some of the storm coverage down in Texas. So we are waiting, of course, like I said, for this press conference with the governor in the state of Texas. But before we go there, you've seen this podium a lot. FEMA had some updates earlier this morning. This is a look at it. We have taken the shot a lot on the show for the past couple of days, and there have been regular updates from them. So relief efforts for Harvey were explicated here. Update on the reservoir, and we're going to bring that to you in just a second when we can find that, because this was a few hours ago this morning from FEMA. And let's go over there because it looks like I've queued it up here. All right, guys, FEMA from this morning. Take a look.
An update on federal support to state, local, and tribal authorities' response efforts in Texas and Louisiana. Following their statements, we'll open up to your questions. Secretary Duke.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. I want to start today by thanking Governor Abbott and his team for hosting President Trump, the First Lady, and members of the Cabinet yesterday on our visit to Corpus Christi and Austin, Texas. We heard firsthand the experience of the first responders and the volunteers that are helping in the Texas area. We met with state and local officials to continue coordinating our response and identifying opportunities for closer collaboration. This was an important first visit to the area. I also want to reinforce the President's message from our trip yesterday. We expect a many-year recovery in Texas, and the federal government is in this for the long haul. We will continue to support the people of Texas as long as it is necessary. The President reiterated this again, both publicly and behind closed doors yesterday. The initial word we got, people first, is continuing through our response. While we continue to monitor the storm as it heads towards Louisiana, we remain concerned about Houston, where catastrophic flooding is likely to persist days after the rain stops. This cooperation between FEMA, the other federal agencies, and state and local officials has been outstanding, and we are collectively focused on rescuing those in danger and providing housing and immediate care for those who are displaced. Resources from across the country have been dispatched to the area to aid in response and recovery. Finally, the local officials in Texas, Governor Abbott, Mayor Turner, Judge Emmett, Chief Acevedo, and all the others are doing a tremendous job under considerable strain. What we must do in the federal government is to continue to support them and their teams. I want to also thank the men and women who are putting their lives on the line to help the people of Texas. Their heroism is truly humbling. Homeland Security's own Customs and Border Protection, U.S. Coast Guard, and others are working with the National Guard and local first responders and have saved countless lives. Yesterday, we tragically lost one of these local heroes, Houston Police Sergeant Steve Perez. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and to those who have lost loved ones in this terrible storm. While the focus has been understandably on Texas, we are working with the state of Louisiana as the storm moves through their state. To the people in Texas and Louisiana, please continue to listen to your local officials and heed warnings. We expect this storm to continue, and our number one priority is everyone's safety. We will continue with the life-sustaining, life-saving mission for the next few days, and then move into recovery for the area. And the officials with me here today will tell you more about that. I'll turn it over to the Commandant now to talk about our continuing life-saving missions.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And we are still very much in the emergency response phase of this historic storm. Number one priority right now is recovering survivors. Over thousands yesterday, but these aren't numbers, these are people. And I just want to, put myself in the shoes of these community members whose lives have really been turned upside down. So we will be there for as long as it takes. Now, as the storm is starting to shift to the east, we will be able to shift our resources to the east as well. So we will be able to stay in front of this. We're getting great support from the National Guard, from the state of Texas, the entire first response community. This has truly been a unified effort, and I can't emphasize enough the great work that our Good Samaritans are doing as well. Back at our Coast Guard headquarters, I now have 32 watchstanders standing watch around the clock because the 911 calls have inundated the call centers down in Texas. We're taking that overflow and we're receiving over 1,000 calls per hour. So we are not out of this by any long stretch yet, and we will be Semper Paratus as we continue to watch this storm move on, and then as we move into the long road to recovery. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor. So the whole community continues to descend upon Texas. We've amassed quite the federal government support, over 12,000 staff members, and it's going to continue to grow. Not only are we pushing people forward through the DHS surge capacity that Secretary Duke proactively put into place, and also the Commandant's people who are risking their lives to save others as well, in conjunction with state and first responders. But we're also calling upon other states through emergency management assistance compacts and contracts where we're asking state support to come down, and so they're continuing to amass in Texas. So the operation right now is very clear. We're still in life-saving, life-sustaining mode. Not only are we performing through our partners at the Coast Guard, we're performing those life safety measures, but the life sustainment mission is huge. It's going to grow. We have over 230 shelters operating in Texas with over 30,000 people, but I don't want to get fixated on numbers because those numbers are going to change in the next 30 minutes. But just to let the people of Texas know that we are supporting the efforts to provide mass care, not only mass care, but also medical care to those who have been displaced. And we understand that this is going to be a frustrating and painful process, but we're trying to do everything we can to alleviate this situation. Overnight, the areas of Beaumont and Port Arthur got slammed with 20 inches of rainfall. So while we're focused a lot of the effort on Houston, we have to also understand that there are multiple counties, over 50 counties impacted right now. We're continuing to watch the situation develop, and citizens in Louisiana are not in the clear. You're still under some evacuation warning orders. Please make sure that you're heeding those warnings from the parish presidents. And we're ready to support Governor John Bell Edwards and his efforts to take care of folks over there in Louisiana. We've also turned on individual assistance, and some of the most important information you're going to hear about today is from our Recovery Director, Alex Amparo. We're providing essential commodity distribution. What that means is we are already providing points of distribution and disseminating life-sustaining commodities in areas that are not being currently impacted by rainfall. For example, we've been down in Rockport, Port Aransas, where the rain has stopped, but they sustained Category 4 winds and storm surge. We are supporting those folks down there with life-saving commodities. Power restoration is ongoing. We're very concerned about the infrastructure. Obviously, infrastructure is the key to restoring routine to everybody's daily lives. We will try to help private power companies bring the power back on as quickly as we can, but right now, many areas in Texas still aren't out of the clear from the threat as it's ongoing. Security is a concern. We've amassed quite a bit of federal law enforcement out of the Department of Homeland Security, down to our state and local partners again. They're working in conjunction with over 12,000 National Guard members that have been deployed by the National Guard in Texas, as well as, the true first responders at the local level. We're supporting medical support. Secretary Price is highly engaged. We're constantly watching, the hospital situations and being able to, we've evacuated several hospitals, but we're also trying to sustain several hospitals to make sure that they're up and operational, and we're providing a standard of care that everybody deserves. With that, what I would like to do is continue to ask people to find ways to volunteer. When it comes to infoad.org or basically going through the state of Texas's organizations to be able to organize the volunteer effort. The need to volunteer is going to take place over the next couple years, okay? And the need to volunteer is in, let me remind you, 50 counties right now. not just in Houston, but everywhere. So that mission is going to continue to expand. But right now, what I would really like to concentrate on is how we get disaster survivors, to start activating assistance for those that qualify. So Alex Amparlo, my recovery director, is going to give us some very critical information.
Good morning. So as of this morning, we have over 195,000 registrations of individuals asking for assistance. We've provided over $35 million in financial assistance to those that have registered. And so our message is clear. If you have impact from damage from this disaster and have been impacted, find yourself in your shelter, first contact your insurance company, file your claim, and immediately after that, go to disasterassistance.gov and register for financial assistance from FEMA. What's important to understand is that our assistance is not designed to make you whole, which is why it's important to first register with your insurance company. It's also important that you provide us your location of where you're at during the registration process, because we can provide you immediate assistance. We also have the Transitional Shelter Assistance Program, over 1,700 families last night, and in over 2,000 rooms in 5 different states that we're providing assistance to. So after you register, you'll be assigned an inspector. That inspector will contact you to come out and view your damages. Due to the volume, we are prioritizing inspections based off of the greatest amount of damage, and we will be in contact with you throughout this process. And so, make sure that FEMA assistance can provide some rental assistance. We can also provide some assistance for repair. We can provide assistance for personal property. It's important that when you register, your address, your current location, how we can contact you, what kind of damage you have sustained, the insurance that you have, and stay in contact with us. Go to disasterassistance.gov. The effort that we're doing through the thousands of employees that are working to provide assistance to those that are in shelters and getting them out of in shelters into a better place, working in partnership with our non-government organizations, as Administrator Long had mentioned, in support of the state of Texas. These organizations like American Red Cross, Salvation Army, the Southern Baptist, they're doing a tremendous amount of work. This is an unprecedented event. We've seen our call volume increase and skyrocket larger than ever before. So has the registrations, and we are in the long haul to provide assistance to every disaster survivor we can.
Thank you, Alex. Madam Secretary.
Take some questions at this point, if there's any.
Yep. Dave Shepardson from Reuters. Do you have any estimate of how many total homes have been flooded and how many people will need assistance, or how much this might cost?
Right now it's a dynamic situation. We don't have an accurate number. I could try to put you a number out there, but I can tell you in 30 minutes it'll be wrong. We try to use the best knowledge, the best mapping capabilities that we have when it comes to understanding the flood zones, the floodplain mapping that we have. But the best indicator of individual assistance is what Alex was just saying. We have nearly 200,000 people already registered. That number is going to climb. We know it. So it's going to continue to project, and we have to be ready to go to support it. Yeah.
Looking at some of the decisions the administration made ahead of this disaster with its proposed budget that would, for instance, cut some FEMA grants and some other agency programs that are involved in this effort, or rolling back the last administration's flood risk management standard, understanding that did not impact the response that we're seeing right now, how is that playing into the administration, perhaps looking at how you prepare for these disasters going forward and reconsidering some of those decisions proposed or made in prior months?
Right now, we're focusing on this specific disaster and ensuring we have the appropriate funding and programs in place. I think that the planning that the communities do has grown over the years, and we're looking at having grant programs that are appropriate to have them continue their planning. But, many of these communities, including Texas, has made extraordinary progress in its planning for disasters. This particular storm was unprecedented in terms of volume of rain, and that's what we're focusing on now. So,
Hi, Catherine here, Fox News Channel. What does the temporary shelter look like? Is it going to include trailers? What are the options that you're considering?
So very simply, the goal is to sustain life. So we've already turned on what's called Transitional Shelter Assistance Program, which is basically getting people into hotel motels, getting them out of those shelters. Shelters obviously are not ideal. And unfortunately, people are going to be there for quite some time as we're trying to mobilize people into hotels. How many people have we already moved?
About 1,800.
Around 1,800 people have already been placed in hotel motels. We have to understand the vacancies that are there. We have to make sure that we'll continue, but that number will continue to grow as we do. The next goal is save houses. As the water starts to recede, we got to go in, and this is where the volunteers need to be organized, is helping people muck out their houses, get the wet carpet, get the wet drywall out, make simple repairs to hopefully get people back in their house, at a very baseline level, and sustain them there. And then finally, the FEMA manufactured housings and travel trailers, we pulled the trigger. We have a limited amount. We have to implement what's called the Defense Production Agency to buy this capability, but also it takes time to produce those. Slowly, as our last resort, we start to bring those in, and it's a very sizable mission. So what we have on the ground right now is what we call disaster housing assistance teams, but this is a coordinated effort between not only FEMA, but HUD. It's also going to be SBA, and the most important piece is working with our state and local partners and those counterparts down through to make sure we put together a comprehensive plan and we clearly explain how the system works. Yep.
Sir?
Jeffrey Cook from ABC News. The President said yesterday probably there has never been anything so expensive in our country's history. There's never been anything so historic in terms of damage. Is that true, or where does this storm rank among the most expensive?
No, you can't do a point-by-point comparison of each storm. What's unique about this storm is the area of devastation, also the amount of rainfall, which is now measuring in some places over 50 inches, which is more than the annual rainfall, and also how long it has been. So we've been experiencing this rainfall over a long period of time, even though the initial winds have subsided. So the duration, and we expect the floodwaters not to crest for another couple days. So those are some of the unique things that were behind the President's comments yesterday.
And I also think it's important to point out that this is going to be an incredibly large disaster for the country. It's going to help us, to reshape some of the ways that we do business. We're going to learn from it and go on. But I think it's very important to recognize that the cost of this disaster, the economic cost to measure the disaster versus our physical cost as the federal government family, we're not going to know a true cost for that for many, many years to come as we work together to understand what the communities are entitled to from public assistance or HUD community development block grants or the reimbursement costs. It takes a lot of time to understand the true cost of this disaster, but it's going to be a huge one. Yeah. Thank you.
Would you have a follow-up? Yeah, I did. Are there areas in Houston still, Catherine here at Fox News, that you feel that you don't have good visibility into, and that there are individuals who are trapped and not able to communicate they're in an emergency situation?
You want to talk about communications, please?
So we've been able to use Google heat maps, if you will, and where the concentration of most of these calls are coming from. So even if someone can't communicate, we have 11 fixed-wing airplanes that are doing surveillance as well. So we have a pretty good idea of where the concentration of those were still in high water. And at the same time, we're monitoring, as you heard from the administrator, the heavy rainfall that occurred in Port Arthur and Beaumont as well. So this isn't like 5-year-old soccer, everyone clustered around one point. We're looking across the entire metropolitan area to make sure that we've got resources allocated. And it's very well coordinated with CBP, with Coast Guard, with other first responders, National Guard.
Can you get more specific about the areas where you think there are clusters of individuals who can't get help, and how many areas we're talking about in Houston still?
We're talking square miles. We're not down to blocks. So we're talking the entire Houston metropolitan area. Others more impacted than others, but we're seeing an awful lot to the west and southwest of the center of Houston proper itself.
Can you tell us what's going to be necessary to get the infrastructure back up and running in terms of the rail lines, and how concerned you are about industrial facilities, including this chemical plant in Crosby, Texas, that had to be evacuated?
I'll talk briefly about the chemical plant. They were able to restore electricity. Those refrigerated tank cars should be stabilized. It's about 20 miles to the northeast of Houston itself. From a Coast Guard aspect, we're looking at reopening the ports. Right now, it is too rough for pilots to even embark ships. So we're working with the Army Corps of Engineers, with NOAA, Coast Guard. We'll have the inner harbor of Corpus Christi surveyed today, part of the intercoastal waterway. But even when we open a port, what we've seen in the past, it'll take several days before those facility workers can get back to work, when you can fire up those refineries, when pilots can actually safely get to the boats and then continue business as usual. We want to make sure that those ports are open well in advance of before the first worker can show up. So I can at least speak to the maritime. Other infrastructure, perhaps, Administrator, you might want to
Yeah. So we are in constant contact with all the critical infrastructure sectors in the area. Secretary Perry is leading us from the cabinet on the energy sector. There are two pieces to that we have to keep in mind in recovery. One is getting distribution up, and then second is getting powers to individual residents and homes, and that's going to be challenging. The high level of flooding requires quite a bit of preparation to make sure that it's safe as the electric companies connect their distribution systems to specific points of system delivery. Additionally, we're tracking the refineries and other gas and oil in the area. The very good news is we have seen no environmental issues at this point, because that critical infrastructure did act proactively in shutting down. And so we are looking at getting those up and running to keep oil refinement and production going. But it is still a safety concern, and they will be up as soon as possible.
If I may add too, emergency managers around the country realize that restoring routine is the number one goal in recovery as well. It's not just keeping up the critical infrastructure, but we also activate what's called business EOCs, or Business Emergency Operations Center. We have one at the national level, and typically all states have them at the state level to understand as well as when the private industry is coming back online. If we can get the roadways open and get the private industry back on to restore some of that routine, as well as the schools, we'll be, the Department of Homeland Security also, and FEMA will be working to help figure out how we're going to do school. If schools have been totally damaged and different things, we may have to set up temporary capability. But that's all in the back of it's in the front of our mind, actually, on the recovery side, is getting the lights back on, getting the sewer system working, bringing up the private industry. Bringing up the private industry is the most important thing.
Sir?
Yes, Michael Biesker with the Associated Press. One of the keys to getting routine back is getting people back in their homes. When you look at the raw numbers, about 9% fewer people have flood insurance in Houston than they did 5 years ago. Do you understand what's behind that decline? And because this flood is so far outside the area where people had flood insurance, what's the advice for homeowners who don't have federal flood insurance that are out there?
So very simply put, those that have flood insurance need to be activating their NFIP policies. Those that don't will most likely be dealing with the Small Business Administration and looking at low interest loans and different things, because they also have a disaster declaration through SBA. So typically anything, if you're uninsured outside the NFIP, the next step is most likely going to be the Small Business Administration.
And what's behind the decline in the numbers of people in Houston who had flood insurance?
I don't know the answer to that point at this. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with that localized issue.
Last question.
Is there any update on the country of Mexico's offer of assistance in terms of whether or not the United States is accepting that offer?
I don't have an update on that at this time. We are working with both.
Guys, as we finish up this FEMA presser that was earlier this morning, I'm going to take you over live now because the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, is about to speak on similar stuff, Harvey recovery. And in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you're seeing live efforts in Port Arthur, Texas. Guys, there's hundreds of people just waiting to be rescued there, and their officials are out there doing it. So let's go over to the governor.
Well, good afternoon. There is a lot to report, some new information. First, as a recap about yesterday, and that is, as you know, the President of the United States was here in the state of Texas, first in Corpus Christi, to talk to local officials about challenges they were facing because of damages incurred in their various counties, especially the very hard-hit Aransas County, Port Aransas, Rockport area, and the desperate needs they have to get power restored as well as to begin the rebuilding process. And then the president was here at this operations center and got to see what we do. His commitment was firm, strong, and unequivocal, that he was going to do everything he could to ensure that Texas will be restored as swiftly and as effectively as possible. As we all know, there's been rapidly changing conditions in the state of Texas, while at the same time we are beginning the rebuilding process around the coastal Bend region. And while we are dealing with what is now receding waters in Harris County and the ongoing evacuation as well as safety rescue process in Harris County, we're now also dealing with catastrophic conditions in southeast Texas. And those conditions are a threat to life and property. And that is required that we take measures to do all we can to help protect them. And I will cover part of that in various different categories as I go through this discussion. First, let me tell you that since I last announced the status of the National Guard in the state of Texas, I last announced that we had 12,000 National Guard members activated. That number has been increased to 14,000. The reason for that is because some members have come back from deployment overseas, others who were unable to participate because their own homes had been subject to flooding or damage. They are now able to help participate. Bottom line, we are now up to our highest level of the number of Texas National Guard members who are deployed to help our fellow Texans deal with these challenges. We are also, as we speak, coordinating with the National Guard Bureau to deploy an additional 10,000 National Guard who are being deployed here from other states. So that will take us up to a total of approximately 24,000 National Guard who will be deployed here in the state of Texas. Now, some of those will be arrayed across the greater Harris County area. We are immediately deploying far more to southeast Texas to deal with the emergency conditions that people are facing in southeast Texas, and we will continue to deploy more west of the Harris County area all the way through Victoria to the coastal Bend region. We are also getting immediately 200 boats and 200 vehicles from the Department of Defense to be assigned where needed. As you might imagine, the most urgent location for that is in the greater Beaumont, southeast Texas area, as well as ongoing needs in the greater Harris County area. I have asked for and received an expansion of the number of counties added to the federal disaster declaration. It has gone from, that's the increase, is now the total is 33 counties are part of the federal disaster declaration. We've added 14 counties, and I want to list these counties so that people in these counties will understand that by being included in this federal disaster declaration, individuals as well as local governments are going to be eligible to receive aid from FEMA. First, I'm going to list 11 counties that are have what I call a complete federal disaster declaration, which includes both individual assistance as well as public assistance. These new counties include Colorado County, Fayette County, Hardin County, Jasper County, Jefferson County, Montgomery County, Newton County, Orange County, Sabine County, San Jacinto County, and Waller County. There are 4 counties added to the federal disaster declaration where public assistance is available, but individual assistance is not. The reason for that is these 4 counties were not the subject of disasters in the way that these other counties are, but they are aiding in the support of the disaster. And they include Dallas, Tarrant, Travis, and Bexar County. These are all counties that are providing a tremendous amount of public assistance in dealing with these challenges, such as sheltering evacuees, providing law enforcement and other assistance to these efforts. I want to emphasize something very important that I will come back to several times during my remarks. For the people in these counties I just listed, especially those 11 counties that are going to be receiving individual assistance, you need to write down this website address. It is disasterassistance.gov. Disasterassistance.gov. If you are in one of the counties that's part of the federal disaster declaration, you will be eligible for immediate support from FEMA that you can register to receive at disasterassistance.gov. And I'll talk to you more about that later. Let me talk to you a little bit about weather, where we are, and where we're going. First, as you know, the rain that was received in the greater Harris County area has set an all-time record. Now that rain has moved to the Beaumont region in southeast Texas. Approximately 15 inches of rain have already fallen in the area, and there's more to come. The worst is not yet over for southeast Texas as far as the rain is concerned. There will be ongoing challenges both during the time that rain continues to fall as well as for approximately 4 days to a week to come. Let me mention specifically flooding conditions that will continue to be a challenge for people in the area. It includes the Sabine and Neches rivers. There will be record flooding in the lower Neches, and the flooding there may last a week. Major flooding will continue for a few days in the Beaumont region, in the lower Brazos River region, where there could be extensive flooding for about a week, if not longer. In the lower Colorado region, there should be flooding for the rest of the week. Over in Victoria and Cuero, there should be ongoing flooding for a few days. It's important for people in all of these regions, as well as in every county that's affected by storms, that you continue to listen to and heed local warnings about evacuation. So listen to, heed, and follow evacuation notices. And then, of course, on top of that, always please remember, and that is, if there is flooding around your area, do not drive into that flooded area. Many of the lives, if not most of the lives, that have been lost in this devastating storm so far are lives that have been lost because of people who were driving vehicles into flooded waters. Do not drive your vehicle into flooded waters. Some information based upon certain categories. First, the Texas National Guard. They are active in 25 locations across the state. As I mentioned, we now have 14,000 state National Guard deployed with more than 600 vehicles, 500 boats, and 100 helicopters. They have been doing most recently air rescue missions in the Beaumont region. And in the past week, they have made more than 8,500 rescues, more than 26,000 evacuations, and more than 1,400 shelter-in-place and welfare checks. They will continue in the most immediate time period search and rescue operations and aiding shelter operations across the state. Some information about the PUC and access to power. There is an urgent need to get power restored in the coastal Bend region, in particular in Aransas County, Port Aransas, Aransas Pass, locations like that. The power provider there is AEP, and the update for AEP is there are still 107,000 outages. That is an improvement since the last time I reported, which I think was around the 138,000 level. But the good news is there are many new power crews that are now working in the region to reduce the power outages. Since the last time I reported, there are 2 other power companies with reports. Our numbers show that CenterPoint has a little bit more than 90,000 power outages, and that would be primarily in the greater Harris County region. And also Entergy has more than 81,000 power outages. And they are all working as swiftly as possible to restore power. For the Texas TCEQ, I want you to know that they've been working with the EPA on a daily basis to address environmental-based issues. They've deployed rapid needs teams to assess needs that have arisen in certain areas, including water and wastewater assessment teams, especially focused in that regard on the Corpus Christi, Ingleside, and Rockport areas. A report from the Texas Parks and Wildlife. They have 5,000 evacuees at state parks in the state of Texas. Most of those are in shelters, cabins, or mobile homes. A report from the Department of Public Safety. There are more than 2,000 Department of Public Safety who are deployed to targeted regions, and they will continue those deployments to ensure the safety and security is maintained in those regions. From the Texas Forest Service, they continue assisting local fire departments in all of the affected regions. From the Department of Health, they have deployed multiple healthcare teams. To give you an example of what they are doing, they have set up 2 emergency room departments at the George R. Brown Center in Houston, as well as they are setting up a medical shelter at the new evacuee center opened up in Harris County at NRG. New information about transportation, and that is there are transportation buses that are available that will be transporting evacuees from the Southeast Texas region and taking those evacuees to locations around the state. Many of those who will be transported from the Southeast Texas region will be taken to the Dallas region, but not necessarily all of them. The information that we've compiled statewide is that there are more than 32,000 people currently in shelters in the state. Importantly, we have approximately 30,000 beds that are available for sheltering as needed, and we continue to work on additional backup plans in the event that more than that is needed. Some updated information from FEMA that just came out that shows how important it is for everybody impacted by the storm to register. there have been 210,000 registrations for individual assistance, and FEMA has already approved more than $37 million in individual assistance. And for those who have not yet applied, again, I give you the address to go to, which is disasterassistance.gov. One of the things most important for me is to help you the best I can, those who are affected by the storms, is to get you the assistance you need as quickly as possible. So I strongly urge you to sign up at disasterassistance.gov so that you can register to begin to receive the money and other resources that you need that you can get from FEMA for the next transition. One thing that FEMA is also doing that is very helpful, these shelters and evacuation centers are intended to be short-term facilities. We want to quickly move people from evacuation centers like a convention center into a location where there are living rooms and bedrooms and bathrooms that people can use as a family unit. And already there is transition housing, which means post-evacuation center, for almost 2,000 rooms. And we want to provide more as soon as possible. And FEMA has already provided more than 5 million meals. With that, I'll take a few questions.
Governor, watching what's happening right now in Beaumont or Arthur, does it seem overwhelming right now for everyone?
It certainly is overwhelming for the residents and people who live in that region. For the state and the responders, it's just part of our ongoing emergency swift response to make sure that we address and take care of the needs of the people, putting protection and safety of life first.
Are you satisfied or pleased with seeing how sheriff's departments, police departments, other places that have not been affected in the state, caravan after a caravan heading down the road? I've seen. Are you a little amazed by seeing that kind of outpouring? Plus, the average person just pulling a bass boat.
I'm not amazed because we've seen this before. Texans really step up and protect and aid their fellow Texans, whether you're a first responder or just an individual. Neighbor helping neighbor, friend helping friend, stranger helping stranger. Texans have really stepped up. That said, I do want to applaud all of the first responders, all the sheriff's offices, all the police officers across the state for doing such a terrific job. I really applaud the Harris County Sheriff's Office, the Houston Police Department for the way that they've handled such an overwhelming demand upon their agencies. But the same can be said for sheriff's offices and police departments in all of the affected areas. I applaud them all for going above and beyond the call of duty, ensuring that they have protected Texans and maintained order. And when you consider the magnitude of this catastrophe, what they have achieved is just stunning.
And you have some cases of price gouging. What's your message in regards to that?
Price gouging is not only reprehensible, it's illegal. And the Attorney General of Texas is taking swift and aggressive action to prosecute price gouging. Understand this, if you price gouge anybody, you can be subject to penalties of up to $25,000 per incident. If you're a business, you can be put out of business by the Texas Attorney General if you dare try any price gouging. It's un-Texan, and we will not tolerate it.
Any estimate about what the amount Congress may be asked to appropriate to cover this?
When you look at comparisons, the population size and square mile size of the area impacted both by the hurricane swath and the flooding is far larger than Katrina, far larger than Sandy. And if I recall correctly, and I will not have a precise number here, but my recollection is that the Katrina funding was well over $100 billion. I want to say it was over 125 billion. So if we go on a parallel standard, it should be far in excess of that amount. I want you to know that I have been working with Senator Cornyn, who's on Senate Finance, who's providing me the categories of funding that were provided for FEMA. And we are working to use those categories as a general outline of what will be provided.
Is this the largest deployment of federal and state Guard troops in state history, to your knowledge?
I am unaware of there ever being another incident in the history of the state of Texas where there's been this much deployment. As you know, I've deployed 100% of Texas National Guard, and then on top of that, we are bringing in well over 10,000 from outside. And understand this, the amount of National Guard that we have in the state of Texas now will only grow because we're operating in stages here. We are in the emergency response stage right now. As we go through the process, as the water recedes, it is essential that we have as many people as possible to continue to go door to door for the rescue and recovery mission and the restoration of order mission. And National Guard is experienced at doing this. And so I would anticipate, but can't say for certainty right now, but I would anticipate that the number of National Guard deployed in the state of Texas will increase from here.
For weeks, months?
I would say for months.
Governor, there's some problems with fuel.
You've gotten a lot of questions. Let's spread it around.
What about fuel? Is it too soon for fuel rationing?
What we are working both with the EPA as well as energy companies as well as other authorities to ensure that we're going to get fuel out as fast as possible. We have a priority right now. Fuel priority must be for first responders so that we can keep people safe and protected and rescued. And once we finish with the first responder needs, then we can get into other issues. But having talked to leaders of energy companies, they are working as swiftly as possible to ensure that fuel operations will be restored quickly.
Governor, House Bill 1774 is set to take effect September 1st, and some have expressed concerns that that might affect the way that people can get reimbursed for claims for their insurance, for their home damage. There's been a petition to change the effective date of that bill. Can you talk about what your concerns are?
You need to understand that any claims along those lines are absolutely bogus. And I'm going to read you, to make sure you have it, the statement issued by the Texas Department of Insurance. The Texas Department of Insurance is reassuring Texas policyholders that storm claims will be paid and that the agency will aggressively enforce state laws and policy provisions to protect victims of Hurricane Harvey and the widespread flooding that followed. The claims filing process and deadlines aren't changing September 1st. House Bill 1774 does not change how property owners file a claim, doesn't change deadlines to file claims, or how insurers process claims. It also does not apply to claims with the Texas Windstorm Insurance Association or the National Flood Insurance Program. Property owners with covered damages maintain the same rights to an insurance claim whether they file their claim before or after September the 1st. The Texas Department of Insurance is sending staff to affected areas this week to help victims file claims and has extended hours for its consumer helpline. The Texas Department of Insurance helpline is 1-800-252-3439 and is open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, as well as 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. here's the reality of what is driving all of this. The implementation of this bill does not affect the ability of any policyholder from being able to file a claim or have that claim paid. What it does do is it empowers policyholders to keep more money in their pockets as opposed to paying money to lawyers who may handle their claim. Because all it really does is require a notification by a policyholder to the insurance company before a policyholder files a lawsuit. And what that does is that spurs the insurance company to get that claim paid faster.
Two more questions.
Say it again.
The official death.
I don't have that.
We're not anywhere close.
Yeah, we will defer to the local jurisdictions and what they categorize as a death related to the hurricane.
Governor, have you made any decision about whether to accept the help that Mexico has offered?
Yes, I have, and we are. And we have, I don't have with me here, we have a list of aid and assistance that they have offered to provide that we are accepting. I don't have the list, but I can tell you loosely, it involves things like vehicles and boats and supplies and food.
One more, and then we have to go right here.
Just a question. I know some of the people that are affected are also undocumented, but as people are coming into effect in 2 days, some of them are afraid of even asking the police officer to come out and rescue them. I mean, you really can't control what each police will do. What is your comment to that? I mean, what would you tell those people?
Well, the director of the Department of Public Safety made clear the other day, and that is when people are going to evacuation centers, when people are seeking help or anything like that, no one is being asked about their status. We're here for one purpose, and that is to save and help people who are here.
Governor?
Thank you all very
We
much.
have to go. I'm sorry, we're really late.
All right, guys, press conference there, the briefing with Governor Greg Abbott of Texas. That is live for you guys. We also have a shot coming in. It's sort of more of a ground shot, a rough shot of a live feed coming out of the Texas area. Reporter is there. This is there he is, raw and sort of unedited, interruptible shot. He's producing some live shots back to the station here, Fox 11 from Los Angeles. He's down in Texas. Let's listen in to see what kind of stuff he has.
When I start talking, we're on, okay?
Yeah.
I don't hear a toss yet.
Okay. Oh, I got it back.
Yep.
My light on?
Yep.
Cool.
You can hear?
Yeah.
Cool.
Good afternoon. Here at the Inverness 4 subdivision, which is about 20 minutes north of Houston.
I know, right? It can't turn.
It's clearing traffic.
I'm $1 million for
I'm in a set. You're taking a picture. Is that working?
Yep.
Right. Captain, tell me what we've just done. What we
We utilized the resources here of our civilian. We have boats in here. We got reports of victims that were trapped in a nearby motel. We're utilizing them to shuttle these people closer to us. We've loaded them up in our heavy transport, and then we're taking them out to higher ground.
We're told some of this flooding could last for weeks. Is that accurate? How long do you think some of this flooding could last? And who is that?
That's a Black Hawk helicopter. It's most likely the National Guard. They've deployed assets out here to help us. They've helped us with search and rescue, with reconnaissance, with their high water vehicles, their Humvee, and their personnel. The flood waters, we're told could last weeks and weeks and weeks. Those people that are hunkered down over there right now, it's probably time for them to start thinking about evacuation. If you do need evacuation, we're asking, call us during the day. As you can see, there's great visibility out here at night. It becomes far more difficult with houses that you can't see.
Captain, we've heard of some looting. Does that just add to your problem? Have you seen any of that? And will we expect some of that possibly? Is this going to take?
Well, we've had some reports of some looting going on in these areas down here. We had some reports of gunshots. You can see that we've had sheriff's officers here that are helping us to make sure that we stay safe while we're helping them.
And in terms of this mission right now, we've rescued a 1-month-old baby, some elderly folks, some custodies are having these folks were on vacation here and got stuck here. Tell me a little bit about the people you are rescuing. It's a very interesting group we got here.
Well, this is a very diverse group here. Age range, obviously from 1 month, probably into their 80s, and we've just been helping everybody here. The Cypher area is so diverse, it's such a diverse community that we have everybody from all walks of life.
Well, my hat's off to you, and you're clearly going to be in this for a while. Day 5 here, and there's going to be a lot of days going forward. What's your wife's name? How's this playing at home? You're going to be doing this for the next several weeks.
So I am very fortunate that I have a supportive wife. Every firefighter that's out here, every first responder, law enforcement, would not be here without the support of their families. It's important to recognize, people are thanking us for what we're doing out here, but we have to thank our families. If our families weren't there supporting us, knowing that we're away from them in a time of this so that we can help other people, we could not be here.
Just lastly, Captain, has it set in, does it sort of hit you the magnitude, this the greatest weather event and the work you're doing on the front line here?
It is. When you're out here and you're looking at this devastation, it's hard to even grasp looking at this firsthand. What makes it far more emotional is knowing that there's first responders out here, both police, fire, EMS, that are affected by these floods. And instead of worrying about themselves, they're still out here trying to help others.
I'd like to have one last question. Today at a press conference, Chief Art Acevedo said, everybody's really coming together. That's what's so important to see here. I'm proud of you, your fellow volunteer firefighters here at Cypher and all of the Harris County sheriffs and others you're working with.
It's very easy to get emotional when I'm talking about that. Everybody has come together. We have seen the National Guard, we've had EPS, U.S. Coast Guard, different fire department agencies, law enforcement agencies, everybody coming together for one common goal, and that's to help as many people as we possibly can. It's just absolutely fantastic.
Our hats off to you, and I know that great thanks to everybody watching this.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you.
Guys, we have a 1-month-old. Congrats on 1 month parents, okay?
A live look, guys, at some of the rescues ongoing in Houston. Also, we have a reporter, Bill, is down there from Fox 11 Los Angeles. At another area of Texas, I believe a levee has been compromised, and he's speaking about that. Let's check in.
He was very specific with me. He said, do not use the word erosion, use the word seepage. Now, there's a difference between those. Erosion essentially means that the water is getting up underneath it and cleaning all the mud, all the, everything that's blocking the water back, and it's being completely removed. Seepage just means that it's starting to get really soft, it's starting to poke through a little bit, but if the water doesn't get worse, it could eventually dry out and go back to the way it was. So that's why we're calling it seepage, not erosion. That's why we're not seeing water starting to pop over the top already. We're just starting to see this area starting to get a lot of moisture into the ground, and that's what's so concerning for the deputies out here, because even though there's been all this rainfall over the past several days, the areas of grass to the left and right here, they're completely dry. You'd never know it rained here. There's no water on the ground. But this area right in front here, where you can see some of it might have come over the top or seep through the middle of it, starting to get very, very soggy. And that's what deputies are keeping an eye on out here for these people.
Little windy down there where he is. Guys, you're watching a couple different shots from the Houston area as these rescues are ongoing. Look at that little baby right below my face here. We're getting in this footage from the continued sort of rescues from here, from the damage, as well as live reports about what's going on with the whole process of reservoirs overflowing, the water rising, and a levee being breached in this situation here as well. So we're going to keep checking in with Houston updates. President Trump had some words in Austin last night as well. If you guys missed that, we might play that out for you guys again. But Houston rescues continue, guys. Check out this footage.
All together. We're clear. All these are together. Come
So there's somebody here who doesn't know anybody that's here handing snack packs out.
Ready?
Okay, this is
going down. Hang on.
Paulina, this is not theirs. It was taken off of this.
Came up with a suitcase.
Oh yeah, no, he knows what he's doing. He knows what's up. We have a good time when we do this kind of stuff. We had to cover a Antifa protest a few weeks ago. I got called a white supremacist.
Yeah. Because he's white. It's obvious, right?
Well, and I had my hat off, and they're like, "You have a Nazi haircut."
It was so crazy. They were telling him, "You look like a racist. You're tall. You're white."
Guys, if you're just checking in with us, thanks for watching this stream today as we continue to cover what's going on as a result of Tropical Storm Harvey down in the Houston area. Yesterday, an emotional press conference from Houston Police Department as they announced that they lost one of their own, Sergeant Steve Perez, who drowned in an incident. I know the police chief, Acevedo, was speaking, and it looks like he is up again. There's another press conference from the police department that we're going to check into right now, live in Houston. Let's check for their updates. We've been hearing that the death toll number is now at 20 in Houston, and slowly continues to rise, unfortunately, with such a state of affairs as is such in Houston. Let's go over to the police department.
Well, I think the mayor would like to address that issue.
Yeah, let me just say again, I don't want to answer hypotheticals. We're looking for, want to make sure that everyone is safe, and we'll address those situations as they arise. But it's our hope that we're out there in every community, every neighborhood. If anyone is in their homes or needing assistance, especially when it relates to seniors or people who are disabled, please let us know. And we certainly will be very attentive to them and want to get to them. And so we certainly will let you know as things unfold. Okay. Yeah. As of Tuesday, we are back to normal operations on Tuesday. all city employees are due back at their posts on Tuesday.
Hey, can you talk a little bit, about damage or anything being affected as far as City Hall, Theater District?
Meanwhile, guys, our reporter from our sister station at Fox 26 Houston is talking to an official. Let's jump over split screen here and take a listen there.
Not a breach. I've talked to a couple engineers out here. They're telling me that just due to the moisture and the massive amount of rainfall that we've had over the past few days, that this part of the levee here, where the bags are set in place, got softened and gave way. The river never came up here causing a breach. The river never did come up to this level to cause that breach. It's all due to the amount of rainfall we had over the last 4 days.
I cannot thank you enough for clarifying that for us. Now, let's talk about these sandbags. Is this where the problem was there?
Yes, sir. The problem was down there. That's where, I mean, they got it packed in right now. They anticipate this being strong enough to hold the minor flow of current that's going to go on this side. As you can see, there isn't much current coming through here. The massive amount of current is going to be in the riverside.
Well, let's take a look at this riverside over here, and it is massive, as you just said. Ray, kind of point towards where the riverside is right there, and you can see just how much water is actually coming from the Brazos River. It is massive, and so when you have a problem, explain one more time. When you have a problem with a levee breach, obviously the neighborhood would be alarmed by this, but it would be a whole lot more, I guess, larger than what we're seeing right now. It would be disastrous.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to control a breach in a levee.
Since the storm began, the Houston Police Department and our AOR has received 47 missing persons report, 47, and we've already cleared and found 27 of those individuals. So the balance that we have right now of people that have been reported missing is 20 since the storm started. These have already been cleared, yes, sir. So we have 20 that we're still looking for. That I don't have that number.
And that's what I'm saying. That 20 number. Those are people who are alive.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, she's.
I just want to say.
Are you talking about from the storm, or are you talking about? Yeah, she's talking about the rest of the storm. That's right.
Yes. Yes. Well, the $20 million that our city council authorized today will simply move from one part of the budget to another. During the budgetary process, the members of city council, those are general fund dollars from the city that were put in for purposes for these type of events. So it's like a rainy day emergency fund, but those are general dollars, and yeah, we do hope to get that back in time. And we're going to need a lot more. And just like I indicated earlier, just on the debris cleanup during Hurricane Ike, the city expended well over $70 million. The coverage here is going to be a lot more extensive throughout the city. I don't think there was any community that was left untouched. And so there's going to be a lot of debris that we're going to have to clean up. And then we want to do it. We want to do it as quickly as possible. And it's not just one round. People will put things out, and then they'll come back and they'll put a second round out, and then they'll come back and put out a third round. So our hope is that FEMA will provide those necessary dollars ahead of time, and not put us on a reimbursable schedule. If you put us on a reimbursable schedule, and the city of Houston has to come up with, let's say, more than $100 million just to do cleanup, then that can slow the process down. And I don't want to slow the process down. And people don't want to see the process slowed down. They want the trash removed, and we need FEMA to. It's all about results. We don't need excuses. We don't need the bureaucratic nightmare. We don't need that. I'm not expecting that. What I'm hoping, and it's good to have the Senator Cruz here. Always good to have the Congresswoman here. My hope is that our federal partners will work aggressively, and that FEMA will be highly responsive, and we will get the necessary resources we need sooner rather than later. Those are city dollars. Those are city dollars that were set aside in our budget for emergency purposes. And I think we can all agree that this is an emergency purpose. But let me tell you, it is a drop in the bucket to what we need. Yes. I'm talking about, FEMA. That's the primary, the entity. Our congressional partners, the administration, congressional partners, FEMA, HUD, all of the agencies. These are our partners, and we simply need people to be responsive as quickly as possible. I know they will, but I'm just pointing out the urgency. We are right here on the ground. There are city council members here who can speak specifically about the needs that exist in their district. I can't think of one single district where there are not tremendous needs. And when people are going through these type of situations, they want to see us respond quickly, promptly. They don't want to be put off. They don't want to see a lot of trash in front of their homes or in their apartment, in the parking lots that they have to walk through or drive through as a reminder. So this was catastrophic, and I'm hoping that people at the federal level, at the very top, will understand that this was catastrophic and that they will be responsive and not put us on, you do the cleanup and send us your bills later on. That would be totally, totally unacceptable. And so I'm hoping that they hear us. I believe that they will. But quite frankly, we need a whole lot of FEMA representatives on the ground now, not just in the shelters, but in the communities, so people can sign up. A whole lot of FEMA representatives now. We need now for them to start processing, putting in place for housing vouchers, so people can move from shelters and other places. We need all of that. The list goes on and on and on. We just need the red tape to be cleared, and people are looking for results. Yes. Yes. Well, the largest shelter, the mega shelter, of course, is right here at the George R. Brown. At its peak, there were a little more than 10,000 people at this location. I will tell you that as things starting to turn, that the population here at the George R. Brown, as of last night, was down to about 8,000. So that's great. That's great news. And again, for most people, they wanted to come out of the inclement weather. Okay, and the purpose of shelters is to bring them out, stabilize, normalize their circumstances, and then work to transition them. There's another major shelter, of course, at the M.O. Campbell. There are about 2,000 people there, and we'll work as quickly as we can to transition people out. And then, of course, the county and a county judge set up a shelter at the NRG Center that will hold 10,000 individuals as the need so arises, and that's set up. And then, of course, there are individual shelters throughout the neighborhoods. Several of the council members have worked very, very hard in setting up individual shelters in various neighborhoods, and that's meeting the needs of those communities in those particular areas. Humble, for example, has set up a shelter to hold 2,000 people, and many of the people from Kingwood have gone to the Humble. Trinity Mendenhall Hall is up in the west part of town, 1414 Worth, and they are ready, and they are taking in people at that shelter. And the Power Center in Councilman Green's district, District K, they are about 700 in that particular shelter. And of course, in the county, there are about 30 shelters overall in the county. So, basically, and let me quickly say, the city of Houston is not just providing shelter for Houstonians, but we're providing shelter for people who have come in from the surrounding region, okay? So it's not just Houstonians in the shelters, but people in the surrounding region, and I can say the same thing for the county. They're providing not just for members of Harris, people that live in Harris County, but people in the surrounding region. I think what you will find with people from Houston, Harris County, we don't turn people away. We just meet people's needs. Yes. We will have to work on that. I've not heard that at all. I don't know where I have not heard that. We'll certainly take a look at it. Okay. The question is, people need help. We're not questioning people's status. We want people's help. Okay. That's the message, and that's what we're doing. Okay. I told. Well, the goal is to transition them back into their home as quickly as possible. I know that there are many people who are in shelters who that they're going to want to go out and assess their own homes, their situation there. They will want to go out and start removing that, let's say, of carpet or wet furniture, you name it, and putting those things out so that those things can be picked up so they can start to rebuild. So we want to transition people out of the shelters as quickly as possible. For some people, they've been in the shelter since Saturday. Okay, now I know from past experience with the storm that we had last year. Once you get past, let's say, that 4th, 5th day in the shelter, you're very grateful, but you want to transition. And so the key is to try to transition people out as quickly as possible. And that's why I am constantly saying to FEMA and others, all of us have to act with a degree of urgency, okay? Because sometimes if we are in a dry environment, we have the clothes, we're in our homes, we recognize the need, but we may not appreciate the urgency. And what I am indicating, and I want to say it over and over and over again, all of us have to, and I'm talking about the local, the state, the federal level, we all have to operate with a strong sense of urgency, not just at the beginning, but all the way through to the end. People are not just going to assess and evaluate us on how we started. People are going to evaluate us on how we ended this. And so a strong sense of urgency, but we need all of our partners to be operating at the same level. Yes, Sherry. With respect to the airports, in terms of their operational conditions, the Intercontinental and Harvey, Elton Field are all fine. We're not having the commercial flights. The last thing I heard from Mario Diaz, the director, is that they possibly could be ready to go by sometime today, this evening or so. But I'll have to check to see what his latest assessment is. But the last thing I heard today was the day that they were going to try to start back some flights this afternoon. They're fine. They're good to go. A lot was one of the reasons for the delay was the fact you get people here, but the roads were impassable, and so there were other elements that were deterring them. This is my message to people in the city and to all of our services and our partners. We can do more than one thing at the same time. Where we can get back into operation, let's get back into operation. That's why City Council met. We didn't meet at City Hall, but we met today. We got to get back into our normal routine. That's why I've said to the Astros, I don't know if they were, I was persuasive or not. They were scheduled to play ball, for example, on Friday night. This Friday night, I want them to play ball. Let's play ball. Let's moving. If you had certain events, TSU scheduled to play Labor Day Classic, whatever, let's play ball. So we need to get back into our normal operation. To the extent the port is able to ramp up now, let's ramp up. But the sooner we get back into our routine, the sooner it will be. And I think the conditions will improve. But each entity, each organization, they have to look at it and make that call. I'm simply saying, as soon as possible, let's get going, or at least ramp up. The airport will start running today at 4 p.m. Limited operations, but starting to ramp up, 4 p.m. today. Well, most of the schools will start on Tuesday. Most of the schools will start on Tuesday, and that's another reason why I'm saying the city employees don't come back till Tuesday. Many of them have kids. Schools are out. It's kind of hard for them to be here if their kids are at home, especially in these conditions. So, but schools will start on the 5th. That's another reason why we have to transition as much as possible, as quick as possible, because there are a lot of kids in our shelters, okay? But we're going to try to work with all of our school districts, just because they're in the shelter does not mean they cannot go to school. They'll just have a unique first day experience at school, you know? And but we're going to work very hard to meet their holistic needs. But school will start for most of our districts, if not all. They will start on Tuesday. Some of our schools had already started, but certainly like for HISD and some of the others, Houston Independent School Districts on Tuesday. Yeah, yes. Oh. Look, the Houstonians, the Good Samaritans stepped up big time, major. Quite frankly, we would not have been able to rescue as many people that were rescued without the support of neighbors, Houstonians, being Good Samaritans and stepping up in a major way. I know when County Judge Ed Emmett put out the clarion call for people with boats to come forth, the boats came from north, south, east, and west. People were checking on their neighbors, can't say enough of that. This morning I saw up in West Houston people assisting. I know in Northeast Houston, same thing was occurring. So, I mean, but that's Houston. That's Houston at its best. Houstonians will put their own lives at risk to assist somebody else. So I'm very proud of the Houston people in the city. Yes, Mike. Right.
What's your thought on that discussion? What can or should the city be doing to change the rules?
And yeah, I thought I heard or saw something where some people were saying blaming everything on zoning. But look, the county flooded. There were areas outside of Harris County that flooded. When you have a rainfall of this magnitude, and I guess let me re-emphasize that, this was, for the city of Houston and Harris County, this was a major rainfall event, okay? A major rainfall event. I mean, check out what's happening now in Beaumont, Port Arthur. Who would have thought storm goes up, comes down, swings out into the Gulf, and Beaumont and Port Arthur. This is a major rainfall event. To try to place this, let's say, place the blame on zoning. With this particular storm, that wouldn't have changed anything. It would have been a city with zoning that flooded. That's the nature of the case. I think, you know, it's so easy to try to, okay, what caused this to happen? The reality is that there are multiple factors that caused it to happen. And quite frankly, if I can just be succinct, no one controls, in a sense, Mother Nature.
But Mayor, there has been a lot of talk about the decades, the lack of improvement in infrastructure.
True.
And it's been said a lot of times that local, state, and federal officials perhaps don't have the political willpower to spend the capital that's needed to provide substantial training. Do you believe, now that this is on top of federal, state, and local boards' money?
Hey guys, if you're joining us, thanks for watching the stream. Meanwhile, as Houston Mayor gives some updates, Sylvester Turner, Mayor Turner there gives some updates from Houston. The storm this morning was continuing to move eastward towards Louisiana. So actually, take a look at this live feed here. Governor John Bel Edwards of Louisiana also giving an update to folks there in the state of Louisiana on what they're prepared to do. We're going to stay here in Houston for now for this update as this continues with the question and answer session. But if you've been watching today, we're just kind of jostling around our live sources, our cameras, for what we have coming in as far as updates on this recovery effort. Yesterday in an emotional press conference, Chief of Police, who's actually here with the mayor, had to talk about his 34-year veteran Sergeant Steve Perez and how he died in the flooded waters and their efforts to recover him and save him. And it was an emotional moment there for police. They are here too to provide some more updates with the mayor. So let's listen in and finish up with this press conference for now.
The Buffalo Bayou. But there are other projects throughout the district, throughout the city, where with additional funding, we can mitigate the risk of flooding. But you cannot significantly reduce flooding on the cheap. Okay? You cannot reduce it on the cheap. You cannot talk about infrastructure on the federal level and the dollars don't come. It can't. It can't. So we need major dollars spent in our cities, okay? Quite frankly, all over, but in the metropolitan areas, we need major additional dollars spent to mitigate the risk of flooding. Now, I will never claim that you can absolutely prevent flooding. Can't do that. That's in God's hand. But what we can do is that we can expend the necessary dollars to mitigate the risk of flooding. Now, and if we don't do it, FEMA is going to continue to be paying. And where do the dollars for FEMA come from? They come from all of us. Okay? So I will readily agree, you know, even with the Congresswoman here, I would readily agree, federal level needs to do more. Okay? But you cannot. What people do not want us to do as elected officials, they don't want us to be going through their neighborhoods and saying, oh, how bad things are, and then we kind of flying over and, oh, look how bad it is, and then we try to fix flooding on the cheap. That doesn't work. That's not, and they're not going to hear that anymore. And right now, there are many people who are angry, they are frustrated, okay? And they want help. And that's why I'm saying to our federal partners, that's why I'm saying to FEMA, people are angry and they're frustrated, they're wet, they're out of their homes, okay? And they want assistance yesterday. And they are going to be heard, okay? And if we don't act very quickly, we're going to hear them. I already know that right now, everybody's just trying to cope right now. But after things settle down, they want to see the debris moving, they want to see the dollars flowing, and they want to return back to their homes. They're not going to want to be in shelters for a long time, and people in the neighborhoods are going to want to see their houses rebuilt. Because if we couldn't stop the water from coming from the dam and other parts of town, they want to see what we are doing to help to rebuild their communities, and we need to move forward. Yes, sir.
In 2010, the voters approved the new Houston for flooding improvements. Can you talk about where that money's been spent and how we look at the budget to see what improvements have been done for this?
Well, the money has been. Well, the money has been spent on streets and drainage. The money has been spent on, I would tell you, look around in your neighborhoods and on the streets. Your money has been spent on streets and drainage. But just one project alone is very expensive. This city is 640 square miles. You need a heck of a lot more in order to significantly mitigate the risk of drainage and flooding in the city of Houston. Okay, and the three projects with respect to the bayous that I was talking about, that's not dealt with through the Rebuild Houston program. The Rebuild Houston program is on streets and drainage, not on these major flooding projects. And bear in mind, the bayous are controlled by the Harris County Flood Control District and in large part by the Corps of Engineers. The damn Corps of Engineers. Bayous. Those are not city responsibility. We are responsible for the streets that carry the water to the bayous that then take the water to the Gulf. We're not responsible for the dam, the Barker Addicts Dam. So again, that's what I'm saying. There are many different layers, many different partners. And again, I will say it, and without hesitation, you cannot significantly mitigate flooding and drainage on the cheap. And a lot of people don't want to pay, but you're going to pay sooner or later. Sooner or later, you're going to pay the piper. sooner or later, but you can't do it on the cheap. You can't. And so you can't hold tight to your to your purse strings, and then when these storms come and people are impacted, then everybody is so concerned. My question will be, where will people be a month or 2 months from now? Will they still have the same commitment and sensitivity to people who are flooding today? And only time will tell. Okay? It's one thing to show up when people are hurting. It's another thing to show up when we have bandaged them and relieve their pain, but their conditions pretty much remain the same. We shall see.
One last question.
One.
One last question.
On gasoline, I'm not so much concerned with. I think we've been operating pretty much with an adequate supply of fuel. I know Citgo and I think Shell and others have stepped up. I talked to the CEO of Exxon even before this storm came, and they were staging and being prepared. So I feel very comfortable on the fuel. With respect to moving forward, I don't think there's any member of City Council or myself that's going to leave any single person behind. We're not going to do that. We're all in this together, and it's going to take a collective effort. With respect to the first responders, as well as our other city employees, but let me say with the first responders, yes, they are operating on overtime. And when I say overtime, in terms of the amount of time, energy that they are expending, and so yeah, we're pushing them to the core. We're pushing them to the core. And they are responding. I'm amazed at the level of performance when they are being stretched and pushed to the core. I am constantly amazed. I'm constantly amazed at their ability to take care of other folk when their own families are being, in a sense, at home and they're out here. Or I'm amazed at the fact of how they can perform when they don't even have the medication or the type of food that they need. That's why I don't apologize for anybody in this city who take the time to provide them a hot meal, to feed them, to give them just that added support that they need, because quite frankly, we need them. Same thing for our other employees. So are they being stretched? Absolutely, they're being stretched. And I think that's why it's important for all of our partners on the federal, state level to respond as quickly as they can in order to move us from this chronic situation and get us all back to a sense of normalcy. I know it's going to happen. I know you have many other questions, but my voice is fading, and you don't want me to, I got to sing later on Sunday at my church. If you want to hear me come sing a solo, I wouldn't recommend it, it's, all right, thank you so very much. Thank you all. I'm sorry? Until their needs are met. My hope is that the courts will respond to it before Friday. Courts sometimes don't announce what they do, they just do it, Thanks.
There's the Houston mayor, guys, adding a little bit of comedy at the end of that press briefing. I'm just hearing what we're going to switch it up to. We're going to get a shot next of Port Arthur, Texas. We saw some of the damage there and the flooding and the evacuations that were going on this morning. This is a live look, just a Houston bump shot. You can see lots of officials, police presence, people in the streets there. Just so much being done, guys. We have so many feeds for many days coming in. I know this has sort of dominated our show coverage today and yesterday. We'll see what tomorrow brings as well. But like they said, this is going to be many days of efforts, many months of cleanup effort in the Houston area. So in a second here, we're going to be getting a shot again from Port Arthur, Texas. This is a live shot interruptible by reporters. They're sending these back to the stations there. So let's go over to a live shot of Port Arthur, Texas. A lot more sort of destruction here, more flooding efforts to rescue folks here. People were waiting here, hundreds on this street this morning. Let's see what we can see here. Yeah, guys, not the most heartening scene, I guess you could say, in Port Arthur, Texas. But this shot sort of says it all. I mean, we haven't seen so much, and we can only get cameras in certain places. But this is one of them. You really do see people with, you know, the bag on their backs and their clothes and their bodies, their families, waiting for boat rescue, essentially, in these flooding waters. President Trump is about to, or I'm just hearing over the box, he just landed in Missouri. That was his next stop this week, according to his schedule. So he's in the Midwest for just the day, I believe, and then back here in D.C. And by the way, if you guys are watching us, you're watching live our digital newsroom here in Washington, D.C. You can see behind me, that's our channel, Fox 5 Live on YouTube. Just getting a shot switch there. Now we're on the runway, I think, waiting for President Trump to arrive in Missouri. But obviously, Hurricane Harvey taking most of our time, our coverage, in our channel. You can see behind me, Fox 5 Live. If you guys want to be part of our community, our channel here, subscribe to our channel, that red button below this screen, and you can be part of it and get alerts as to when we come up on your phone, so you can check in with us day to day. I am Molly Nevola here in the studio, and I run this news show so you guys can see the breaking news throughout the day and what's happening live as it happens. So, like I said, a lot of this is Harvey coverage. Here's a shot that we have from one of our sister stations down there, and obviously it's a rough shot, and they're getting in what they can get in, but we take in as many live sources as we can. Back to Missouri, here where the president is about to, I believe, step off Air Force One, where he has arrived today. To talk in Missouri. I think he's talking taxes today. And we're going to continue to bring you Tropical Storm Harvey feeds and coverage of that. FEMA's updates. There's the president, just landed in Missouri, walking off the plane onto the tarmac there to some cheering crowds. President is set to talk about his tax reform plan while he's in Missouri. He's going to be unveiling his new reform plan, and this is where it's at. So you can see he's being greeted by some crowds there on the tarmac.
Towards the back of the motorcade, of course, the beast, the two front Cadillac, as you can see here, doors are massive, bulletproof, they carry their own oxygen, carry a case of the president's blood, just in case
And guys, we'll bring it back into the newsroom here as we slowly close down our show for the day. We'll just take you to what's happening live here. And I want to remind you that you're watching our digital coverage from our newsroom in Washington, D.C. And you can follow us this particular stream on our YouTube channel, which is here, which is what you're probably on. Or maybe you're on our website. At the bottom of the screen, we always stream live, the live coverage of what's going on. We're going to end here with this shot still from Port Arthur, Texas. These recovery efforts are ongoing. And this is really the most compelling shot, I think, of the day as people wait to be rescued by boat, essentially, which is some of the rescues that we've been seeing. Lots of videos coming in, right, being posted to social media and whatnot. And people coming together, like the governor was saying, like the mayor was saying, Texans helping Texans. The community really is coming together in this time of need. Celebrities donating their money, right? We've heard of Beyonce giving, Kim Kardashian and family. Sandra Bullock announced that she was giving $1 million today. So lots of people with Houston in their hearts this week as recovery efforts are ongoing. And so just a reminder, you can watch this coverage and play it back on YouTube or on our website. You can also follow us on Facebook, Fox 5 DC, and follow our updated web stories and coverage for all of this, all of these stories, anything breaking about Harvey and Houston. And we'll be tweeting it out as well on our social media accounts, Twitter and Instagram, Fox 5 DC. That's where we're at. So you can find us there, guys. We are live in Washington, D.C. Quick live look here at the Capitol Dome. That's where we are on this crisper, a little cooler day than normal in this summer at the very end of August. Pretty hard to believe as we go into Labor Day weekend this weekend. So, guys, you can join us again tomorrow. We'll be here in the digital newsroom, and we'll leave you with this shot of Port Arthur, Texas, guys, as recovery efforts continue in Houston. Thanks so much for joining us today.